Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm excited to be sharing 5 cards using a brand new kit, and the kit is by Create and Inkspire, which is a business that was started by Courtney Krieber, and it is not only a business but an online publication. So if you want to head on over there, I will leave all of the information below. This is the very first kit for Create and Inkspire, and it is an awesome one. So this kit comes with some NUVO masking fluid, some NUVO shimmer powder, some Trinity stamps, beautiful little gems, and these are in assorted sizes. And there's a little bit of twine, and then there are 2 stamp sets. This is kind of a wildflower themed stamp set. So this first one is the stamps, and the second one is a sentiment set. So that's a 4x6 and a 3x4 stamp set. And then you get 2 stencils. So you have this floral stencil, and then you have this edger stencil with clouds and grass, which is awesome because I don't have a grass stencil. There are 2 4 1/4 by 5.5 MOHAWK watercolor sheets, a NUVO pearlescent 8.5 by 11, and then there's a Nina Desert Storm 8.5 by 11, and then 2 pieces of Nina Solar White 8.5 by 11. And so I'm going to start out with the masking fluid. I have some masking fluid in my stash. I think it's Winsor & Newton or something like that. I have never really used it. The great thing about the NUVO is that it comes in this little this container that is very easy to write with and do little detailed things, but you can also put it on a piece of plastic or something and then use a brush with it as well. So I just did a random design in the background. It's almost like creating your own stencil in a way. And then I'll go ahead and set that aside and let that dry. And I actually worked on other cards when this was drying, so I'm not sure exactly how long it took to dry. There are some really thick areas and some thin areas. And then for some reason, I was just doing a little experimenting, so I got out this Prima paper paste and put that over the top. Not the greatest idea in the end, but I will show you how it turns out. And then I'm going to take that NUVO shimmer powder and apply that over the paste and the mask. And I'm just taking my water and taking the powder and adding as I feel necessary and moving that around. And like a lot of the powders, it's usually not just one color. And so when you put that down, it'll like have an explosion of different colors. And this probably doesn't capture really well on my video or in the pictures, but it's a really pretty combination of kind of like a yellow orangey color, and then you have that red which bleeds out into kind of like a pink color. So it is a really pretty color combination. And I've gone ahead and let everything completely dry, and I'm going to remove the masking fluid now. So this is where I was like, maybe that wasn't a good idea to put that texture paste, because it was kind of hard to get that up out of that texture paste on top of it. Basically, all you have to do to remove the masking fluid, though, is it's kind of like rubber cement. So you just like rub your hand over it or your finger over it, and it will come off in like little balls of glue almost. And then I'm going to take the little floral piece from one of the stamp sets and heat emboss that in gold. And I'll go ahead and adhere my panel to my card base. And I have backed the floral piece with just a circle of vellum. And I'll add that. And then the sentiment that I am using says "Missing You Today." And I add some of those NUVO gems from the kit. And that will complete the first card. It is a much brighter color in person. I had a really hard time trying to get the pictures to capture that. But so the second card is using the pearlescent cardstock, and I will be using both of the stamp sets and the NUVO gems. And so this one's a really quick and easy one. I'm using the leafy stamp and then a sentiment, and I'm just putting that sentiment in the center of the card, and then I will put the leafy stamp on 2 sides of that sentiment. And the leaf stamp is probably my favorite out of the set. I don't know why, I just really love that stamp. And so I'm just taking some Versamark embossing ink and inking that up and stamping this really pretty card panel. And I will be heat embossing in white embossing powder. And so I'll go ahead and put that embossing powder on the card and heat that up with my heat tool. And then I'm going to take a white Prismacolor colored pencil. And it's really hard to tell on screen, but I'm just doing a little kind of circular motions with the pencil. And I'm just mainly doing the edge closest to the stem. So I'm just putting a little bit of white in each of those leaves. And I'll go ahead and complete that. And then I am not a super twine person. I like the way it looks when other people do it. This probably took me 15 minutes to get this twine on here. So I put some adhesive on each side of that card and then wrap the twine around it, but it took way longer than the video shows. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop that up. And so I pop that up, putting a piece on each side of that twine so that it is even all the way around. I added the bow with a sticky dot and then a few of those gems. I did also splatter this card with some of the NUVO shimmer powder watered down and some of the Dina Wakley white acrylic spray. And that will finish off that card. And then for the next card, I am going to use the grass edger portion of this double-sided stencil. So this stencil has a cloud edge and a grass edge, and I don't have a grass stencil, so this is awesome. But what I'm going to do is I am going to do the stencil on the bottom right and the top left corner. And here I'm just marking out, I just wanted to make sure that I did not go past a certain point with my ink. And so I just set the stencil on my cardstock and determined where I wanted that to go, and then marked it tiny little marks with a pencil. And then I'm taking this Catherine Pooler ink in Daydream. This is one of my favorite combinations of Catherine Pooler inks, is this Daydream and Sangria. And I'm taking my blending brush and I'm just doing it kind of dark in the corner and then a little bit lighter going as I move towards the center. And then I'm going pretty light on this portion as well, of where I am going over the stencil in the grass. And then I'm going to flip the card over. I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did with the first side. So I'm not going to show the entire process, but it's exactly the same. And then I'll go ahead and try and blend out a little bit of that, or smooth those edges out in the middle, and add a little bit more ink to the sides of the panel. And at first this made me think of a shark's mouth or something like that, and then it made me think of that Venus flytrap plant that eats bugs. So and then here I am, I'm using this really cool stamp again, and I'm using VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, which is like a gray color, to go ahead and stamp up that image. And I'm just putting one on either side of that white space that I left in the middle. And I am using the VersaFine Clair because it is a pigment ink, which means it is great for water. It will not smear, and I'm going to be doing some watercoloring with this Sangria color of the Catherine Pooler ink. So I'm just going to take my brush. I do a light coat first, and then I'll come in at the center of the leaf and do kind of just like dropping drops of color and letting it do it dry just as that is. So it does look a little bit splotchy. And then I'm taking some of that leftover ink and splattering that on the card. I do also splatter the blue, and I splatter some of the NUVO shimmer powder as well, and then that extra. And I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to the rest of this video where I assemble the sentiment and show the card, but that completes that card, and this is the final card. And then I'm going to use the other the other stencil that is included in the set, and this is a floral stencil, kind of like wildflower grasses, I guess. And so I'm going to use my distress inks. I'm going to start out with some mustard seed, and I just put that stencil at the bottom of the card, and I want to go in as dark as I can with this. So So I'm not pressing super hard, but I'm going to go over it a few times to get that yellow as vibrant as I can get it. And I'm going to use the masking fluid again, but this time I'm going to paint it on with a brush. And so I am putting a little bit on a piece of plastic. I have set the stencil back down on the image, but I've offset it a little bit so that there's a little bit of a shadow. And then I'm just going to paint that masking fluid through the stencil. And so I've gone ahead and painted the whole thing, and I'm carefully taking it off of the panel. And this is the Neenah Solar White cardstock, which is not a cardstock that I usually use. And so I'm going to go ahead and do my ink blending. And so I am using a Distress ink in Ripe Persimmon, and then I will use a Worn Lipstick Distress ink. And I'm just trying to get the inks to blend, the transition to blend well together. But I'm going to take that Worn lipstick and try and blend that into the orange a little bit, and then go down over that stenciled portion. And I'm not going over that really heavy because I was worried about the masking fluid, the dried masking fluid coming up, because that's how you get it off, is you rub on it. And so I went over that area fairly light. And then here I learned that Neenah does not take water very well at all. So when I put the water on it, it made these ugly, like, puffy areas where the water sat on the paper. So basically it's not a coated paper, it does not take water. And so to save my card, I went ahead and I took some NUVO glitter pen and put that over all of the areas that that water got on. And then I'm going to stamp up the sentiment in VersaFine black, and it says, "Friends bring order to your Friends bring order to your world. Friends bring color to your world." And then at the end I do add a few little dots of my white gel pen, and that will finish off that card. And for the final card, I am taking the cloud portion of this double-edged stencil, and I'm using my Letter It embossing pen. So it's basically embossing ink in a pen, and I'm just tracing around the cloud edge. And then I will go ahead and add some gold embossing powder and heat set that. And I wanted to mention I will be using this kit again at the end of August. So Create Inkspire is the company that is going to be featured in our small company 6-month collaboration, which happens on the 30th of every month. And the collaboration is actually called Same Set Syndrome. And it is where we take the same product and a group of us all use that. We will all be using this kit, so there will be lots of ideas. By that point, the August kit will be out. So if you're interested in this kit and you want to kind of hop along with us when we do that collaboration at the end of August, I would go ahead and purchase that to make sure that you get it. So for this card, I just went ahead and used that shimmer powder on the background. I made the frame and I put a piece of heat-resistant acetate on that frame. I'm going to be stamping on both sides of the acetate. So right now I'm stamping this floral image on the back side of the acetate, or the back side of that panel, or the square, or whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to heat set this white pearl, or vintage pearl, no, what is that called? Vintage pearl embossing powder. And I'll go ahead and heat set that. And then I'm going to flip that over, and on the front side of the frame, I will be stamping the sentiment in my Versamark ink and adding some gold embossing powder and heat setting that. And then I'm making kind of a pseudo shaker card, I guess. And so I do take some of those NUVO gems from the kit and add them with adhesive into the background. And I've already gone ahead and popped up my little frame with some foam tape, and I'm just going to adhere that over those gems. And that will finish off this card and my 5 cards with this kit. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. As always, all links will be in the description below. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me. And I hope to catch you next time.